Okay, let's talk about value pricing, which is the most fun, difficult, and talked about pricing strategy. All right, first thing that you need to understand to get a grasp on this is that people never actually pay for what something costs to make. And I think this is something that a lot of designers and creatives struggle with. They feel bad maybe charging something for more than what they think it's actually worth. But I want to give you a very quick example. So this is a screenshot from, ASOS, the fashion company. Now, there is no reason, like technical reason, that one jeans should cost $170 and the other one is $14. They were both manufactured in probably the same Chinese manufacturing. The costs of the materials were very, very similar. So why is one worth more than 10 times the price of the other one? It's just because people value things differently and they don't really care about the cost of the manufacturing, which is similar to understanding that your clients don't really care about how many hours you've actually worked. So before we talked about the cost value pricing, where you told them, oh, I'm going to be working on this 50 hours, so you should be paying me $1,000. But the truth is, and you understand it from this image, is they don't really care how many hours you've worked. They really care about the value of what you've created for them. So now here's the tricky question. How do you figure out this value? So if you've been around the internet, YouTube, Instagram, podcasts, all that kind of stuff, you might have heard about the Blair Enns way. So Blair Enns wrote a couple of books. The most famous one is maybe the No Pitching Manifesto, I think it's called, and the other one is Pricing Creativity, which is basically kind of a guide for value pricing. Now, the way that this works, this is very, you would hear Chris Do, if you know him, talks about this all the time because he's a big fan of this strategy. Basically, the way that this works is that you would determine the outcome value by asking a lot of questions. So stuff like, so if we do this project, how many sales do you think that you're going to get with this new website? How much will it increase your revenue? If we do this new branding, how many more customers do you think that your business would have? And then basically they would tell you, oh, we would make $1 million more this year. And so you'll tell them, okay, so if I'm going to help you succeed on this goal, basically we're going to help you create $1 million worth of value. And then based on that, you're going to say, well, if I'm helping you generate $1 million, then probably a fair share of that value would be something like $20,000. And the way that they state this is basically they're saying something like, well, every consultant, because I can't guarantee that you're going to have this result, as a consultant, the fair share, the fair price of that is 5% or 10% or something like this. This is basically how this value conversation would work like. But the truth is, it sounds so great when you hear people talk about this and when you read about this, but the truth is, it is not that simple. There's a lot of things here that it's really, really difficult, and it does not work always that way. Now, the reason is, a lot of times it's not only about making money, and not every project that your client would have is about generating more money. Clients want a lot of other things. There's a lot of other things that are involved in projects sometimes, from ego, like I'm a new manager in this company and so I want to redesign things, to things like we need this to be more comfortable or faster or something like that. Now, a lot of things are not always quantifiable, meaning you can't really put a pricing, like it's very easy to say, okay, you're going to generate $1 million more in sales, but you're not going to be able to, quantify how much more feeling secure is worth to you. Oh, I'm going to create a logo that you will better love. How much is love worth to you? It's very, very difficult to quantify this. And client either won't always say this with you. They're not always going to share these numbers with you. Sometimes it's because they don't want to share them with you. Sometimes they don't know, right? They don't have a clear understanding of how this is worth to them. So this value conversation, super awesome in theory, but very, very hard to put in actual practice with clients. On top of that, if you're not working directly with the founder of the company, which might be the case, and a lot of times you might be working with the marketing manager, they don't care if the company is going to, generate $1 million in revenue. It's not like this person specifically is going to get that $1 million. They have a budget and they need to fit within that budget, right? So you're actually trying to understand what that budget is worth to them. So the first step, if you want to use value pricing, and I suggest that you will learn how to use it, is understand where the value actually lies, okay? So the first one, and that's the easy one, that's the one that we discussed already, right? Business outcomes. If you're going to generate more leads, and every lead equals $1,000, you know how much business outcome you deliver to them. So that's money. That's easy. It's great. It's the best, but it's easy. Other things are your experience. So if you have 10 years of experience within a certain industry, that's value to them. Why? Because they are more confident in working with you. Remember, a lot of times what they're actually buying when they're working with you is the feeling of confidence that things are going to turn out fine, because they are afraid. They might be fired. They might lose money on this project. And so when you're selling them security, that's actually worth money. Think about this. Would you rather have somebody, let's assume that you need somebody to fix something, your toilets in your house, okay? And you can have somebody that's, an intern that never did this before, and he would charge you $10, or you can have somebody that did this, a million times, and he would charge $20. Would you take the risk for $10 to work with somebody with no experience? No, you're not going to take the risk. So this is an example where your experience is actually reducing risk, and when you're reducing risk, that's valuable, and they're willing to pay more for that. The speed in which you're going to be able to provide the work. We talked about this when we talked about messaging, but this is something that's actually worth money. And this is in conflict with how many hours you're working. So a lot of people have a problem because they're thinking, well, if I'm charging by the hour, if I'm charging based on cost, if I'll do this faster, and I will be able to produce work faster as I gain more experience, I'm actually going to reduce my prices. That doesn't make any sense. And it's right. It doesn't make any sense. You should charge more as you work faster, because being able to deliver things faster provides value to your clients. Things like comfort, how comfortable it is to work with you, or how comfortable it is to use your product after you designed it, is also something valuable to them, and also their experience with working with you. If you're fun to work with, if they love coming to your office, if they love meeting you for coffee or something like that, if they enjoy the experience of working with you, people will pay more to work with people that they love, with people who make them feel good about themselves, because at the end of the day, they're people and they want to enjoy. And so they will pay extra money for that. The last thing that I will mention here is that people find status symbols valuable. And status symbol, you can think about this, about anything from a car to your iPhone, or to everything that we do means something about us, right? And so if I'm working with somebody and it says something about me, if it means that I'm smart, if it means that I care about my business, I want to share that. It makes me feel good about myself. And so it's worth money to me. And so people will spend money on status symbols. Okay, so let's get practical and think about how to really do this value pricing thing. So the first thing is you need to master cost first, okay? Because first, you need to understand that whatever the value is, it's beyond what it's going to cost you. So your value is going to be profitable. That's kind of number one. The second thing is you start doing your research, okay, to understand what's valuable to them, what the business outcomes might be, Okay, so it's doing a lot of research to understand who these people are, who's the person that you're selling to, what do they actually value. And that can be research from the news, but it can also be research from their Facebook page, Instagram page, to understand what they are like and what do they value as people. Remember, you're at the end of the day selling to people. You're going to ask them a lot of questions in the process, okay, about what this means to them. Why are they doing this? What are the outcomes that they're looking to get? What is their budget? And all these questions are kind of like digging into understanding what the value is for them. Now, don't mix this up with, if they tell you that their budget is $5,000, that doesn't mean that you need to price it at $5,000. $5,000 might be more than what you were thinking about, and so asking that might kind of reveal that the value is higher, but it doesn't mean that that's really what they value. Maybe that's just what they think they value, but if you show them something that costs $7,000, they were like, we want that. But it kind of gives you a ballpark. Now, here's the thing. Here's the really hard thing. You need to guess. There's not going to be a person that's going to tell you the right number. This is a guessing game. And it is a game, and you need to consider it as a game, and you need to take risks. And that's why this is kind of a little bit of a more advanced technique, because it's iterative. You try, sometimes you fail, and sometimes you get more than you thought, and then the next time you're going to try harder, you're going to try higher, and this is basically how it works. Most people won't tell you this, but this is the actual reality. Now, there are things that you can do to help make the price look better, which is using anchors. Now, anchor is basically what Blair Enns talked about. When you have a high anchor, such as, you're gonna make $1 million, or you're gonna spend 3 weeks of development, for example, because I'm gonna build this for you with Webflow. So let's imagine how much 3 weeks of developments are going to cost you. This is kind of like anchoring a high price in their mind. This is kind of like a psychological game, right? You're anchoring a high price in their mind so that the price that you're going to tell them, which is a price that, again, you guessed, you came up with because you thought this is what they are valuing, you're trying to make it look small. Now, here's what will happen. You're going to do this, and at first you're not going to charge. You're not going to go really high. But once you did this, and once you'll see the results that your work has produced to your clients, you're actually going to develop confidence, and you say, yes, it was worth to them. They were happy to pay me $10,000, so there's no reason I won't charge the next one $10,000 or more. So this is, again, an iterative process in a game where you make a guess. When you see it work, and when you see that the value was there, and that the value that your work so that the work that you delivered provided that value, you're going to build up confidence. Okay, so there is no simple answer, but this is the process that you need to go through. Now, one more word about value is it fluctuates. Okay, so here's a graph about the Apple stock as I'm recording this. Okay, and you can see it goes up and it goes down and it goes up again, because the markets change and what people find valuable change all the time. So when you're doing value pricing, it's not like it's always going to be $15,000 your project. Okay, every client is different, and the situation and what's valuable in the market changes all the time. So you need to remember this, and remember that this is kind of a fluctuating strategy. Okay, now this is hard and this is a little bit scary, but this is how you really become much more profitable, because so many times your cost is actually very low, and it's going to decrease. Your cost is going to decrease as you become more efficient and more good. With more experience, your costs are going to go down, okay? And the value that you provide is going up. So you don't want to stay with your cost strategy as you gain more experience, because you're losing all of that potential profitability. And so you'd want to make the move here, even though it's scary a little bit, even though it's a game with no one answer. It's just the goal here is to push higher than the cost strategy.